How's it going, everyone? We are talking about the results of the Canadian federal election and how a lot of people are misinterpreting these results. Okay, everyone understands that the Liberal Party won, but beyond that, there's a lot of things that people are getting wrong. And we're going to clear up those misconceptions. And one of those misconceptions is the Trump effect. People are misunderstanding that. There seems to be these ideas that Trump's rhetoric, policies, tariffs, 51st state shifted Canadian public opinion to the left. That actually didn't happen. Trump might have had an effect on the election, but the effect was different, and we'll get into that. And this gets into the second misconception that people have, is that Canada shifted to the left in general. That's actually not what happened. Canada shifted to the right. And ironically, that shift to the right, which was a pretty major shift to the right, actually played a big role in why the Liberals won. And that might seem paradoxical, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you look at how Canada's political spectrum is pretty different from America's. Okay, so we're going to get into all that. And first thing we'll do is we'll show the results of the election, which will help us understand how Canada shifted to the right and how Canada's political spectrum is different. So we have the results from 2025. The Liberal Party won with 169 seats in Parliament. How the election works is there's electoral districts, and every electoral district votes for which party they want representing them. For every electoral district that a party wins, they get a seat in Parliament. Whoever gets more seats than anyone else, the head of that party becomes the Prime Minister. Now, to have a majority of seats in Parliament, okay, more than 50%, you need 172 seats. Liberals only got 169, which is less than 172. So Liberals have what is called a minority government, which means that if enough members of Parliament vote for having another election, then Canada could have another election anytime. Okay, and that could actually happen pretty soon. If it doesn't happen, then the latest election happens is in 4 years, but we're going to see why an election could happen much sooner. So Liberals got 169 seats with 43.7% of the popular vote, while Conservatives got 144 seats with 41.3% of the popular vote. So Conservatives are the official opposition. Bloc Québécois got 22 seats with 6.3% of the vote. NDP got 7 seats with 6.3% of the vote as well. And Green Party got 1 seat with 1.2%. Nobody else won any seats. Now, here's where Canada's political spectrum is different. Okay, the Liberal Party, different from that in the United States. The Liberal Party is kind of like the Democrats in the United States. The Conservative Party is kind of like moderate Republicans in alliance with centrist Democrats. That's kind of what Canada's Conservative Party is. All right. And the NDP, we're going to get to the Bloc Québécois later. The NDP is kind of like the progressive or socialist wing of the Democratic Party. They have their own political party in Canada. So you have progressives and socialists in the NDP. You also have some progressives, or what some might call socialists, in the Liberal Party, but you also have more center-left people in the Liberal Party as well. Okay, and this has a big effect on how people misinterpreted the election results, and it has a lot to do with how the election unfolded and what it means. So we're really going to be talking about the Liberals and the NDP a lot here. Okay, the Bloc Québécois, it's kind of a French Canadian nationalist party that operates in Canada's province of Quebec. They don't really fall into the left-wing, right-wing spectrum. They have some left-wing tendencies and some right-wing tendencies. So when we look at the seats that the Liberals won, 169, and we add the seats that the NDP won, which is 7 seats, we get 176 seats, which is bigger than 172. That's a majority of Parliament seats. And so these two parties, Liberals and NDP, working in alliance, can control Parliament. And that's what was going on before the election as well. But look at the change, okay? Since the last election, Liberals gained 9 seats and the NDP lost 18 seats. Okay, you add those together, you get -9. So this Liberal NDP alliance lost 9 seats. Meanwhile, the Conservatives gained 25 seats. Okay, that's a major gain, 25 seats. Now what this loss of 9 seats means, okay, bringing the Liberal NDP alliance down to 176 seats, if 5 people from this alliance don't vote, 176 minus 5 is 171, that's no longer a majority. And that happens a lot in Canadian voting, where some ministers of parliament just aren't there to vote. 5 people not there, and this alliance can't control parliament anymore, and then Canada has an early election. All right. So this is much more likely to happen now than before, in a situation where Conservatives have gained 25 seats. That's pretty significant. So Conservatives, they didn't gain enough to win, okay, but they did substantially increase their influence in Parliament, while the Liberal NDP alliance substantially weakened its position in Parliament. They are in a weaker position than they were before the election, whereas Conservatives are in a much stronger position than they were in before the election. Okay, now, still, people know that a couple months ago, Conservatives were way ahead. They were polling at numbers that suggested they would win a majority. So what happened? And people think, oh, what happened is Donald Trump and 51st state and tariffs, and this shifted Canadian opinion towards the left. No, it shifted. Well, it maybe didn't shift Canadian opinion at all. But what shift did happen in Canadian opinion was not to the left, but to the Liberals, which is different than to the left, because in Canada you've also got the NDP. Canadian public opinion shifted from the NDP to the Liberals. Okay, let's get into the polls leading up to the election. Okay, the blue line is Conservatives, the red line is Liberals, the orange line is the NDP. So we see the Conservatives pull ahead of the Liberals around early fall of 2022, okay? But they really start to pull ahead of the Liberals in the summer of 2023. And once we get to fall 2023, Conservatives are polling at 40%, which in a system which has more than 2 parties, 40% support is huge. And Conservatives stay at 40% the whole time, right? Since fall 2023, they're just staying at 40% or a little bit higher than 40%. This drop that you see here towards the end, starting around January 20th, that didn't happen. Okay, these polls are incorrect, and we know it's incorrect because we know the actual election result, which is the Conservatives finished with just over 40% of the vote, 41.3. Okay, where's 41.3% on this table? It's around here. Okay, this is 41.8. Okay, so they got to 40% in fall 2023, and they were just hovering just above 40% the rest of the time, all the way up to the election. This big drop here did not occur. The polls just got that wrong. Okay, meanwhile, what was going on with the Liberals? Well, the Liberals were like really down around just over 20% support and getting lower and lower and lower. And then January 6th, we see a big spike in Liberal support. Okay, but when did the problems start between Canada and Donald Trump? Well, that actually started in late November. All right, late November 2024, that's when Trudeau had a meeting with Trump, which apparently went very poor. That's when the 51st state rhetoric started. Okay, late November, we see Liberal support actually drop. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here so you could see this a bit better. All right. Late November, right here, November 25th, the red line goes down. Liberal support actually drops once this 51st state rhetoric starts. Conservative support actually goes up. And maybe it went up because of that, maybe for some other reason, but that's actually the effect that we see when this 51st state rhetoric starts. When we see liberal support start to go up is actually early January, January 6th, okay? Liberal support goes up after Trudeau says he's going to resign, okay? Trump's rhetoric starts late November. We actually see liberal support going down, okay? Trudeau says he's stepping down. That's when liberal support starts to go up, and it just keeps going up, 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 up. Look at that line, okay? Look at this line here, sloping upward. We don't really see a change in that line around January 20th, which is when Trump gets inaugurated. Okay, the line just keeps on going up as it was already going up, and then it reaches just above 40%, right, around like 43, and it kind of hovers there, and that's how much Liberals won, 43.7, almost 44% of the vote. Okay, so this increase in Liberal support does not match the 51st state rhetoric. It doesn't seem to be influenced by tariffs. We don't see some change in the behavior of this trend when the tariffs start to come about. Okay, it starts the moment Trudeau announces his intended resignation, and it just keeps going up from there until it reaches the low 40s. Okay, low to mid 40s. All right. So if this conservative drop didn't really occur, right? Conservatives have been just over 40% since fall 2023. Then where did all this liberal support come from? Well, it came from the NDP. Look at the orange line. It just plummets. And it plummets more than what's shown here. Okay? The NDP, they have 19% when Trudeau says he's stepping down. And then they dropped all the way down. This shows 8%, but we know the actual results was about 6% for the NDP, right? So they go from 19 to 6, okay? That's a drop of 13, all right? Now, in that time, the Liberals went from about 20% to about 43, 44%, okay? So the drop in NDP accounted for more than half of the support that the Liberals gained. That itself is the main reason, the dominant reason why the Liberals were able to catch up to the Conservatives and surpass the Conservatives and win the election despite the Conservatives polling so high since fall 2023. Okay? It wasn't tariffs or 51st state or all that. It was triggered by Trudeau saying he's going to resign, and then the NDP gradually losing support to the Liberals. Now you also had the Bloc Québécois lose some support that went to the Liberals. You had the Greens lose some support that went to the Liberals. Okay, but mainly it was the NDP. Depending on where you define the center of your political spectrum, okay, you might call Liberals center left or farther left. You might call NDP left or far left. But I think everyone agrees that the Liberals are closer to the center than the NDP are. The NDP are farther left-wing than the Liberals are. So for simplicity, just so we understand terminology, I'm going to refer to the NDP as the farther left-wing party, and I'm going to refer to the Liberals as the center left-wing party, even though those terms might not be how everyone would describe these parties independently. Okay, so if support is shifting from the farther left-wing party to the more center left-wing party, that's a shift to the right. Okay? If people are supporting a party that is farther to the left and then they switch their support to a party that's not as far to the left, that is a shift towards the right. Okay? So what we actually see going on here is a shift towards the right, which causes the Liberals to gain so much popularity and win. Okay, so if we zoom back out here again, okay, We see the Conservatives gaining popularity. That's a shift to the right. Okay, as the Liberals lose popularity, right, to the Conservatives, that's a shift to the right. And then what do we see happen after that? The farther left-wing party plummets in popularity as people shift their vote from the farther left-wing party to the left-wing party that's more towards the center, which is another shift towards the right. Okay, so we see a big shift towards the right in popularity in terms of what parties are popular. Okay, and as a result, the center left-wing party ends up gaining more from the farther left-wing party, enough to surpass the gains that the center right-wing party, the Conservatives, made. Now, look what happens to the NDP. Okay, they lose 18 seats. Okay, they now only have 7 seats in Parliament. The head of the NDP actually lost his own seat and resigned. And because they only have 7 seats, less than 12, they lose official party status, which means they lose a lot of funding. They lose some significant perks. So Canada's farther left-wing party just got decimated in this election. Okay? The Conservative Party gained a lot. The center left-wing party gained a little. And the farther left-wing party just got decimated. That's called a shift to the right. Okay, that is Canada shifting towards the right. So right now the Liberals are celebrating, right? And the Conservatives aren't feeling so good. But as emotions settle, the Conservatives are going to realize that they actually made some major gains. And the Liberals are going to realize that they're actually in a significantly weaker position than they were going into this election. Now, was there a Trump effect? Well, maybe. Okay, we know that this phenomena started after Trudeau said he's stepping down. It did not start when the 51st rhetoric started. Okay, so certainly the Trump effect did not initiate this process. Did the Trump effect feed this process? Well, maybe. Okay, the head of the Liberals, Carney, he was using that a lot in his speeches, saying, you know, vote for me for stability because I'm going to deal with Donald Trump the best and all that. Did that cause the farther left-wing voters to say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to vote for the Liberals to keep the Conservatives from winning because I think right now we really need the Conservatives not to win because Liberals will deal with Trump better? Maybe. Okay, maybe that had an effect that kicked in only after Carney came to power because the NDP supporters thought, well, Trudeau won't do well dealing with Trump, but Carney will. Maybe that was an effect. But again, that effect is not a shift to the left. That effect is a shift to the right. Okay? If people who used to vote for the farther left-wing party decided to vote for a more center left-wing party, that is a shift to the right. Okay? Just by definition of what left and right directions are, right? Like if you're, you know, far to the left and you move closer to the center, you are moving towards the right. That's how it goes, right? So what we also see when we break things down and look at the different regions is, so in Canada, there's really kind of 3 swing provinces, right? You have BC, you have Ontario, and you sort of have Quebec, maybe. Okay. The provinces that are on the East Coast, they tend to be liberal, and that's how they were in this election. The prairies, so Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, they tend to be more conservative. So Alberta and Saskatchewan were more conservative. Manitoba's kind of in between. But Alberta, Saskatchewan, they voted very conservative as well. But look at what happened in British Columbia. Okay, the Conservatives went from 13 seats to 19. Okay, that's a gain. The Liberals gained 5 seats while the NDP lost 10 seats. Okay, so again, the Liberal-NDP alliance lost 5 seats in total. Okay, and look what happened in Ontario. And this was a big one, right? Because Liberals were really hoping to win a lot in Ontario. And Ontario has, you can see, more seats than any other province. It's about 40% of Canada's population. Liberals went from 78 to 69 seats. So the Liberals lost 9 seats. The NDP lost 5 seats. They lost all of their seats. There's no more NDP seats in Ontario. The Greens lost their 1 seat. Okay, so they went from 1 to 0, right? So these are a lot of losses for the Liberal NDP alliance. Meanwhile, Conservatives went from 37 to 53, right? So they gained 16 seats, all right? So big gains for Conservatives in Ontario. This is what Liberals were not expecting. And as a result of that, Liberals only got a minority government instead of a majority. Okay, so Canada's biggest province and biggest swing province, biggest in terms of population, saw a big shift away from Liberals and NDP and towards the Conservatives. With Quebec, things pretty much stayed the same for Conservatives. Like they went from 10 seats to 11 seats. The Bloc Québécois lost 10 seats while the Liberals gained 9 seats. Now, another study that came out, okay, looked at how students voted, all right? And they also see that Conservatives have gained a lot of popularity among students, all right? Now, let me go to the specifics here, okay? So the current tally includes results of 5,900 schools and almost 1 million votes, okay? And here's how the students cast their ballots, okay? Results shifted significantly from 2021 with a surge in support for Conservatives, okay, who went from 3rd place among students in 2021 to 1st place in 2025. Okay, the Liberals also saw a jump in seats, and much of this has to do with a sharp drop in support for the NDP. Okay, that's the farther left-wing party. And other studies saw similar trends among young people in general. Okay, now this is interesting because stereotypically, right, young people tended to support the left wing more. And historically in Canada, you saw that. Well, not anymore. Okay, big shift towards Conservatives. Now Conservatives would have won more support than anyone else had it only been students voting. Okay. This is the vote share that we would see just from the students. This is the seat share that we would see. All right. So we do have Liberals and NDP splitting the vote more among students than among the general population. Now, if we scroll down here further, where is the line here? Okay, so how does this compare to the student vote results from 2021? Students across Canada in 2021 elected a Liberal minority government with NDP as the official opposition. So Conservatives weren't even opposition. Okay, in 2021, Liberals were the government, NDP was the second biggest party, right? So the parliament is split between the left-wing party and the farther left-wing party, if it was students voting only in 2021. Okay, whereas what do we see in 2025? Conservatives win and the center left-wing party Liberals get opposition, whereas the NDP drops from 108 seats to 13. Okay, we see a major drop in NDP support. Okay, again, among students and among the general population. Okay, so I mean, for the Conservative Party, you could argue that's a bad thing because had the Liberals and NDP split the vote, more Conservatives would have won. But for conservative-minded Canadians, the party that they disagree with the most, which is the farther left-wing party, that party just got decimated in this election. Okay? So possibly that some conservative-minded Canadians might think, well, you know, my party lost, but the party I disagree with the most just got completely decimated. You know, maybe that's a win, right? So you do see, like I was saying, you do see a shift to the right in Canadian politics rather than a shift to the left. And Liberals winning has to do with that shift to the right because the farther left-wing voters moved in the direction of the right and started supporting the center left-wing party, right? And that center left-wing party, the Liberals, even adopted, at least for now, some conservative policies. Things like reducing the carbon tax, reducing taxes on homes, that sort of thing. Okay, so even the center left-wing party has been adopting some policies that have been considered right-wing for a while. And the other thing to notice is Canada does have another right-wing party, which is farther right-wing than the Conservatives, and that's called the People's Party of Canada. And there was a lot of concern of what if there's vote splitting between the Conservative Party and the People's Party of Canada. And it looks like in at least some electoral districts that happened. It's not clear yet in how many that happened. But if we look at that People's Party of Canada, okay, all the way down here, they got 0.7% of the vote. All right. Whereas in 2021, the People's Party got 5% of the vote. Okay, so they went from 5% to 0.7. Okay, that's also good for the Conservatives because it means that there's a lot less vote splitting that could cost the Conservative seats, right? So again, the Conservatives really did make some major gains. And the NDP supporters, former NDP supporters who decided to vote Liberal, well, it's unclear. Did they actually change their mind? And that's why they voted Liberal, right? They don't like the NDP policies anymore, in which case it is a genuine shift to the right. Or do they still prefer the NDP policies, but they strategically voted Liberal in order to keep the Conservatives out of power? Now, this could be a good thing or a bad thing, be it for Liberals or for Conservatives, if it's the latter case, okay? Because for the Liberals, well, if people are strategically voting for them, that's a good thing for Liberals. But if the people who are supporting the Liberals are actually divided between center-left policies and farther left-wing policies, that could mean infighting and instability within the Liberal Party. So it could be good or could be bad. For Conservatives, well, if the farther left-wing voters are now playing a significant role in the Liberal Party holding on to power, then that means that the farther left-wing voters have more influence over the Liberal Party, and that would be bad for Conservatives. But again, if there's infighting within the Liberal Party, that could be good for Conservatives. So again, it could be good, could be bad. If these people are just strategically voting, if they genuinely change their mind and stop supporting NDP policies, then that is a genuine shift to the right, which Conservatives would like. Probably it's a combination of both. Some were strategically voting, so for Liberals or Conservatives, that could be good or bad, right? And some were making a genuine shift to the right, which is good for the Conservatives, right? So what we see here, again, two things. One is that Canada shifted to the right, okay? Ironically, the Liberals won because of that shift to the right, because of NDP supporters moving more towards the direction of the right, more towards the center and supporting the Liberals. Conservatives are very popular. They have a lot more seats, especially in the swing provinces, especially in Ontario. So we actually see Canada shifted to the right, not to the left. And the Trump effect, if it happened, it didn't create the Liberal surge. Did the tariffs boost the already existing Liberal surge? Maybe, but the effect wasn't that the left wing became more popular in Canada. No, the effect was that the farther left wing supporters actually switched their vote to center left, which again is actually a shift towards the right. So the Trump effect, if it existed, it was not the main thing at play, boosting Liberal popularity, and it did not boost the popularity of the left wing. It boosted the popularity of the Liberals among those who are farther left wing. Okay, so it actually would have shifted farther left wing voters towards voting center left. So hopefully that clears things up. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.